You know what I think looks cool? The Montreal Canadiens Twitter page and their header. Look at the font, look at the graphic design. It's cool. Now, the contents of the Canadiens' Twitter account aren't really all too great. We do not need to acknowledge the 4-1 loss against the Philadelphia Flyers yesterday, but I will go out there and try to acknowledge some other news that happened with this team. And you can say, Lego, you probably should have made a video about this yesterday, and that's fair. But I do think it was important to get some extra details out there so we could fully dive into this Canadiens goaltending update. We've got some really good news amongst the prospects of the Habs. We've got some unfortunate news with some of the veterans on the team. And you could also say that yesterday's 4-1 loss, where Jacob Fowler wasn't his best and had a brutal turnover, is a learning experience in disguise. Now, the main meat and potatoes of this video is going to come in the form of this. Yesterday, at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, the Montreal Canadiens assigned Samuel Montembeault to the Laval Rocket on a conditioning assignment. And I'll always get a kick out of these graphics that the Canadiens post on their social media, because that arrow right there, from the CH to the Rocket logo, that's the same arrow that I use in the graphics for my videos on the thumbnails. It's just the ones that I use have been modified to be a little bit flatter because this one right here is really round. Anyways, all graphic design comments aside, this took a lot of folks by storm. Hey, wait a minute, does that mean that Sammy Montembeault is on waivers? Does that mean that the guy got sent down to Laval and he's going to be an AHL player permanently? Take a look at the contract and you'll see that Samuel Montembeault doesn't have a two-way deal. He's making $3.15 million a year till the end of 2027. And that's the thing. He's not going down on waivers, folks. He's just going to the Laval Rocket on a conditioning assignment. We had ourselves some details as to what that actually means and why things could have gotten to this point. Darren Dreger on TSN 690 wondered whether Sammy Montembeault worked hard enough this summer to prepare for the season. We know that Monty, after all, also had to deal with an injury during the offseason that may have affected his training, even though the Quebec native put in the effort to be fully ready for training camp. Scrolling down in this article on HabsFanatics.com, you'll also see this other tweet from Habs on Reddit. Just an FYI regarding Sammy Montembeault being sent down to Laval for conditioning assignment reasons. The Rocket only have 2 more games left before their Christmas break, December 18th and December 20th. The Habs have 5 games left before their Christmas break, with their last one being on December 23rd versus Boston. So I think what Habs on Reddit is implying here is that there could be a reasonable take that says Sammy Montembeault goes down to Laval, maybe he plays tomorrow or he plays later in the weekend, and then he gets called back up and finishes the rest of the calendar year out with the Montreal Canadiens rather than the Rocket. Here's another tweet, an NHL conditioning assignment. The player has to agree to it. You can only be up in the AHL to a consecutive 14 days. There's a maximum of 3 games played, and the player is exempt from waivers. The league can also investigate if they determine the team is trying to evade waivers. Which, look, I think for Sammy Montembeault's case, you can very well say that the guy could use a conditioning stint. I mean, he's at a big ol' .857 save percentage this year with the Montreal Canadiens, 5-6-1 record, 15 games played, and a .365 goals against average. Yeah, we love Monty in these parts, but he has not been good, unfortunately. And plus, the fact that his last game played was on December 9th, 769 save percentage, not great. Obviously, it doesn't really inspire much confidence for any Canadiens fan. I think it's a reasonable take that the Montreal Canadiens are not trying to evade waivers for Sammy Montembeault. But rather, we had ourselves another comment here. This is what Renaud Lavoie went out there and said yesterday afternoon. Sammy Montembeault agreed to be sent down to finish the week with the Rocket. His last start was on December 2nd, and he was badly sick the weekend after. It's smarter for him to play this week in Cleveland before meeting the team in Pittsburgh on Sunday. So, essentially, this is the plan. It makes a lot of sense, too. Get Montembeault off of this team and into the AHL where he can actually get some playing time, play in a situation where the games don't really matter in the grand scheme of things, and just get his feet back under him. The Montreal Canadiens having a little bit of a break and are able to breathe a little bit with this gap, and it'll allow Samuel Montembeault to go over into the team for Sunday. I mean, Montreal didn't have themselves the best showcase against Philadelphia earlier yesterday, which obviously doesn't bode well. But with tomorrow's game being against Chicago, obviously Chicago is losing out on Connor Bedard, so that's a little bit of a weaker team. You could probably just thrush Dobesh in there. And then on Saturday, the Penguins play off against Montreal on December 20th. So there is a little bit of a break-ish, if you wanted to say that, if you wanted to stretch it out there. Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, if you don't really need to get Montembeault in there, that would make sense for him to get some playing time in Laval. But of course, good on Sammy Montembeault for being a good sport and just agreeing to the move, allowing himself to get sent down and onto this conditioning assignment. Now, speaking about Montreal Canadiens goaltenders who are in lower spots in their hockey progression, I wanted to go over to this post made on the Habs subreddit. It's a big congrats over to Habs prospect Quentin Miller for picking up his second straight NCHC Goaltender of the Week award. He's 11-5-0 with a 1.99 goals against, a .930 save percentage, and 3 shutouts with Denver in the NCAA this season. And we have been making a bunch of videos about Quentin Miller, a Montreal native, going out there and just dominating the position in the Denver Pioneers system. 20 years old, 6'3", 190, Montreal Canadiens' 4th-round pick back from the 2023 NHL Entry Draft. Miller, the past few weeks, has still been pretty good. He had a loss in there, .875 save percentage game against St. Cloud State University on the weekend, but a .974 against that same St. Cloud State team on Friday. A .917 against Miami University, Ohio the weekend before. And a shutout against that same team in the first of that little series. Quentin Miller is still at a .931 save percentage. He has dominated the collegiate scene. He is one of the best prospects in hockey when it comes to the goaltending position. And if you head over to the NCAA in its entirety, you will see that Quentin Miller is only bested by 4 goaltenders in the entire scene. One of them happens to be Trey Augustine, who is pretty much highly touted as one of, if not the best, goaltending prospects, period. But Quentin Miller is there as the University of Denver's #1 guy, so big shout out over to him for getting the NCHC's Goaltender of the Week award one more time. With Miller and Fowler and even the other guys chilling in other parts of the Canadiens lore, I do think that there's a lot to look forward to when it comes to the Canadiens and net. If you think about Jakub Dobesh as part of that conversation as well, you gotta remember he's still young. Obviously didn't have the best little run the past few weeks, but still, there are some growing pains, and he's been thrusted into a pretty difficult spot as a goaltender on the Montreal Canadiens in 25-26, so we could give him some leeway too, right? But with that in mind, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about these Montreal Canadiens news. Really good news out of Sammy Montembeault agreeing to go down, and awesome news for the prospects to go out there and continue their dominance. Where's the other guy, the other Canadiens goaltending prospect? There are 2 others, right. Mrtka with a .953 for Dartmouth, and Alexis Cornrier for Cornell University. .937 save percentage over there. They haven't had many games, so obviously it's a little more difficult to continuously talk about those guys. But Quentin Miller's at 17, so he's a primary option there for the Denver Pioneers. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about these goaltending updates for Montreal. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.